Good morning, afternoon, evening. It could even be 2 o'clock in the night. I don't know. Thank you for being here. This week, we're going to talk about resumes. It's a great topic. It's in every one of our goals. It's a transition goal, and it's something that everybody does. If you're trying to get a job at Taco Bell, if you're trying to become the president of the United States, you have a resume. Basically, a resume is a document, usually a single piece of paper, that tells who you are and why you want to work for the people that you want to work for. And it's pretty much that simple. So it tells them who you are, and this is why you should hire me, or this is why I should work for you. And so this week we'll go through creating and making resumes. For you juniors and seniors, this will be really, really advantageous for you to pay attention, to actually do the work, actually create a resume. After you create it, print it, and when you go to Taco Bell, Target, anywhere you go to get a job, take the resume with you and hand those off. In the least, it gives them your phone number, and it lets them see your name, and they can remember who you are. And it's something you should build for the rest of your life. It's why it's called building a resume. You start off very young with very little education, very little experience, very little skills, and then every year that goes by, you build your education, you build your skills, you build your experiences, and your resume builds, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and hopefully the jobs you get become more difficult, and they become higher paying jobs, and your resume will reflect that. So for you guys who are sophomore or freshmen and sophomores, this may be a little down the road, but it's actually a really good lesson to do now, because it will get you to start thinking about what experiences can you do now as a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, or a 16-year-old. If you're not having a job, what experiences can you do now? What can you do now that can help you build a resume when you get into those 17, 18, 19-year-old ages where you're actually trying to find employment and trying to find some compensation for work. I mean, you do an hour of work, they give you an hour's worth of pay, which is a really good thing. Money in the pocket. Who doesn't like that? So to start off, make sure you go to the content library, and in the content library you're going to find, it says resume, and copy the whole thing. If you click at the top there, you can click on this, copy it, go to your classroom notes, and then you're going to paste it in there, and it'll say resume on it, getting your first job. And so creating a resume will help you get your first job. Just think about it. If you go to Taco Bell, and I don't know why I'm using Taco Bell as an example, I think because one of the videos we're going to watch, she talks about Taco Bell, and now Taco Bell's in my head, and I can't get Taco Bell out. But if you go to the Taco Bell down here by Bayer, you turn in your application, you're putting your application in with all the other high schoolers from Bayer, and they're all going to put an application in, and they're pretty much filling out the exact same thing. Now, if you turn in your application with a resume on top of it, then boom, you're already going to be different than everybody else who's turning the application in. They're going to see something that, hey, this person already has gone one step above. Even though you probably have the same experience, the same education, because you're both going to be 16 years old, juniors at Bayer High School, you're going to have real similar backgrounds, but just by having that resume attached to the application, it's going to set you apart, and they're going to be like, wow, this kid's actually going above and beyond. We should at least give them a job interview and see how that turns out. So hopefully by now you've copied it. If you need, remember, when you're watching these lessons, pause, do what you got to do, come back, push play. So by now you should have copied and pasted the resume section in there. The very first thing to think about as we're going through this is, what is the difference between a job and a career? And we had this lesson at the beginning of the school year. So I'd like you to pause it, write out your best answer, write out what you think a job is and what a career is. Don't play on, push pause, write out what you think. What is your difference? Do you think there is a difference or isn't a difference? A job and a career is exactly the same thing. What do you think? Pause. Answer. All right, so you should have paused. You should have put what you thought, and your answer probably is a good answer. But the kind of thing I was hoping you were thinking about is job is kind of a short term, and most people can do it, right? So a job where you sweep the floors. Most of us can sweep floors. So if you get a job at Save Mart cleaning up the store, most people can be trained how to clean up the store relatively easily. And that's something they could probably teach you in a week or two. Right, so and that's more of a short-term I've had probably in my lifetime 15 jobs. I worked at Burger King once. I've worked at Starbucks. I was a lifeguard at YMCA, which isn't around anymore, but YMCA, I was a lifeguard there. I worked for my uncle digging ditches and washing tractors. I've had lots of jobs in my lifetime. And then I've actually had some things that maybe could have been a career. I used to clean carpets, which that could have been a job or that could have been a career. I could still be cleaning carpets today, making pretty good money, decent wage. I used to own a hot dog cart, which was kind of a job. It was short term. Making hot dogs isn't the hardest thing to do, but that could have been something I'd done long term. It could have started off as a job, and I could have grown it. So I could have turned into a career. And now I'm a teacher, right? So I've been trained. I went to school. I've had many years experience. I'm way better now than I was. I still have a lot of growth to do as a teacher, but this year, compared to the first year I started teaching with no experience, even though I had the education the first couple of years, I didn't have the experience. So now after all these years experience, my level of proficiency is way higher. So in this career is much long term. I've been doing it 15 years, getting much better at it. And it took a lot of training, a lot of education to build up this experience, right? And so that would be like if you're an electrician, if you're a plumber, or if you're a union worker painter. Those could all be careers. Anything you would go to college and get a 4-year degree for, or a 2-year degree would be usually considered a career. Things that we kind of know about are like lawyers and police officers. Those are all different types of careers. So usually careers you're kind of think of long term, something you're going to do when you're 40, 50 years old. Jobs are usually things that are kind of short term and things that you usually do when you're in your 20s and your 30s. Some jobs could turn into long term. So some jobs can turn into careers. Right? I have a friend who works for the grocery store, started off bagging, and then he went to cashier, and he became a shift manager, and now he works full-time running the shifts at the grocery store. So that job turned into a career. So that could happen. All right. So whether you are getting a first job or you're creating a career, you're going to want to start to build a resume, right? You're going to want to start building a resume. So here's a cool little picture I found. It showed a lot of jobs that teenagers like to work at and get jobs at all the time at. Target, Starbucks, Best Buy, Subway. I don't know what Publix is, but Publix, and then McDonald's. Must be like public grocery stores. And like I was talking about my friend over at the grocery store, some of these, like Target, it could start off as a job where you're stocking the shelf, and then 5 years later, you've done cash register, you've done this, you've done that, you became a shift manager, you became a store manager, and actually some of the people who run the whole entire stores at Targets, Walmart, Kohl's, these really large companies, actually started off as just a teenage job, and it turned into a lifelong career. So some of these actually could turn into careers. Usually we kind of think of them as jobs. And for those, you're going to have to fill out an application. An application is a legal document that every employer is required to have by the state. It basically tells the employer who the employee is with the legal documents, and they can check reference and things like that. Whereas a resume is not a legal document. It's something that's not required. Some employers kind of require or want to have a resume, but a resume is something you would add to your application to kind of give them a little more sparkle, a little bit more twinkle in their eye when they're going over and reviewing whether or not the company wants to interview you. So in a resume, you can add information to make you glow a little bit better than the person who puts in the application. Well, for every job that opens, there's going to be 5, 10, 15 applicants. So you want to have your application be a little bit more shiny, a little bit more attractive than the next person over. All right. So here's the first thing what I'd like you to do is watch this video. So go ahead, pause this, click on the link, what is a resume? And it's a short little 2-minute video. It kind of gives a really quick synopsis of what a resume is. And while you're watching it, think of these 2 questions so you can come back and answer the 2 questions. How many pages should your resume be? And who needs a resume? Which people in America needs a resume? So how many pages and who needs one? So pause this video, watch that 2-minute video on who needs a resume, and answer the 2 questions. Pause it, watch, answer. All right, so you should have watched the video. and you should have heard them say 1 page. Short and simple. Keep it short and simple and concise. 1 page is all you need. And who needs a resume? Everybody. Like I said, everybody needs a resume, whether it's you're trying to get a first job at Jiffy Lube, or if you're trying to become the president of CEO of GE or the president of the United States, you need to have a resume. You got to tell people, you have a short 1 page, concise information that tells people who you are. All right, so in the video, so according to the video, your resume needs to be concise and organized. Concise and organized. So we'll go ahead and write that note out. I'm going to delete it off of here so that you'll have to write that note. Haha. Then the next part is what basic information is in the resume. So basically, the resume, as you probably saw in that video a little bit, is short and concise. You don't want to have too much information because people don't want to read a novel, but you want to have the information that's pertinent to the job you're really looking for. So if you want to get a job at Jiffy Lube, should they hear about how you're a great babysitter and how you work well with other people and how nice you treat your grandmother? Or should they hear more like you do chores around the house, you wash your mom and dad's car, you've helped your parents change the oil, you worked at your uncle's auto shop with changing oil. So they kind of want to hear the information that's kind of pertinent to that job at Jiffy Lube, right? So you want to kind of, when you're writing your resume, you're kind of thinking of what it is you want to get the job for. So basically, at your age, a lot of you don't have a lot of experience or education just because you're young. And as you get older and older, like I'm 47, and some of you guys are right around 17, so that's 30 years of education experience I have on top of what you have. So you just got to start with where you're at and kind of, you're going to keep building it as you're going up and up. But this is the basic information you have to have. You got to have your name. So write down the name that you want them to know you by. You don't want to be you don't want to, if some of us have 4 or 5 middle names, you don't want to write all that because then it gets too confusing. You basically want to have your first name that you want to be called by and your last name. Keep it short and simple. If you want to make it look fancy, if you like me, and my first name's Jeff, right? So it's a pretty common name. So maybe I want to say Jeff L. White. My middle name's Lloyd, so maybe I put L. But I think I would just keep it Jeff White, short and simple, easy to remember, right? So keep it short and simple. You want them to be able to get a hold of you. So the first thing you got to make sure you have ways for them to get a hold of you. So every way a person can get a hold of you, you want to put on there. So if you have a phone number, you need to put your phone number. If you don't have a phone number, you got to put a phone number of the closest phone to you. So when I was growing up, it was easy. You just put your house phone number, but not everybody has house phones anymore. So you need to put your mom's phone number, your dad's phone number, your sister's phone number, whoever is their bedroom's close to your bedroom, and they have a phone. That's the phone number you're going to put. So when they call them, they can come get you. And they can say, "Hey, your McDonald's is calling," and you can talk to them. Your address, so if they got to mail you something. Your email address, which you can use right now. You can use your school address, email address. If I were you, I'd create a personal email address, something you can use for the next 4 or 5 years or rest of your life. I'm still using the same email address from 20 years ago. It's been 20 years I've had my email address, my personal one. The next thing is your personal account. So this is something you got to be really careful about. You may want to add it. Some people like to add it. So like if you have a Facebook account, maybe you want to add your @Facebook account. Or and usually Facebook, people try to keep more professional, a little more family oriented. And you can put that on there. And if somebody's going to hire you, they're probably going to go search you on your social media accounts. So you may want to just give them the best one that you have that has the least amount of negative pictures on it, like has family pictures on it, vacation pictures on it, you doing cool things on it, not pictures of you getting in trouble or doing things that are naughty, because then they're going to see those pictures and those comments. And also, if you have an account where you're kind of tear people up, like maybe you're saying negative things about the school, you're saying negative things about teachers, you're saying negative things about the principal. If the employer goes and finds that account on Twitter and sees what you've said, they're not going to like what you said about those people. They're going to be afraid to hire you because then they think you're going to say the same things about them, right? So the account thing on Facebook and those, you don't have to necessarily do them. But usually today, most employers are going to look up your media social accounts. They're going to look them up. They're going to do a quick search and see if they can find them and kind of see what kind of person you are. So you got to be careful what you put on those accounts. And then if you have multiple accounts, you might want to just put on there your family-friendly account so they can kind of see, they'll find the one that you want them to find, right? So you got to be careful about your media accounts now, because employers will look them up. Even landlords look them up and kind of see what kind of person they are, to see if they're partiers or if they're family oriented, that kind of stuff. So you got to be careful with your social media accounts. Lastly, is they're going to look for is experience, education, training, skills, and references. So anything that's an experience, and this is where, again, if you're young, you have to be kind of creative. And I have this little picture here. See if I can zoom in on this. That's me. There we go. So you got to kind of think about how can your experiences kind of relate to a job. So if you have been mowing the lawn diligently every week for 3 years, and you've been doing your grandparents' lawn every week for 2 years, that would be a great experience to write down. Babysitting, if you've done any amount of babysitting, if you go to church and you work in the nursery, or you help out at church, or if you help out with the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any kind of civic or social organization that you help out with, babysitting or setting up for events or taking down for events. At high school, if you go into one of the teachers' rooms and you help that teacher organize their classroom every day, you're putting things away, helping out, you can write that down as your experiences. Doing yard work, right? So if you cleaned up your yard once in the last 6 years, that really won't count. But if you had a garden, and every year you and your mom plant a garden, and you've planted corn, and you raise corn, and you shuck corn, and everything that has to do with corn, you can write that down. If you're 16 years old, that's an experience that probably most 16-year-olds don't have. So you're kind of thinking of things. You're trying to be creative. And think of experiences that can really help with the job. And remember, you want to kind of keep it relating. So if you're trying to get a job at Taco Bell, maybe you want to write down experiences that relate to daily activities around the house, right? So maybe you go to your aunt's house, and you've helped your aunt clean her house every week because maybe she has a broken arm. So you've gone to her house and help her clean her house every week for 3 months. That's a really great experience to put down for a job on Taco Bell, right? And then you can put your aunt's name and number down as a reference, and they can call your aunt and they can say, hey, have they really shown up to your house and really done chores over the last 3 months like they said they did? Your aunt says, yeah, they're really helpful. They're really kind. They really helped me out. This, that, and the other. So it would be a really good experience and a really good reference. So you're kind of thinking of things like that. If you're at church, if you've been volunteering in the nursery, right, taking care of the little toddlers, that's a really good experience. And again, if you're a freshman and you're thinking about trying to get a job when you're a senior, those are things you want to think about now. Hey, maybe we should, when we go to church, maybe I should start volunteering. And that means every Sunday you help out. And so when you fill out your resume when you're a junior, you can write that in your resume. And that's going to look really, really good that you've been volunteering for 2 years with the toddlers. Right? It's going to look really, really good. So something to really think about if you're a freshman, a sophomore, even a junior. Start volunteering places. And when you volunteer, that will build up your references. Lastly, your education. Not lastly, but next, your education. So think about anything you do that you don't want to say, I go to Bayer High School and I learn English, because every American has to go to high school and learn English, right? So what you want to kind of think about, that maybe what are some unique things you're doing that's different? So I was thinking about one of my students does small engines. And small engines is a class you can take for 2 years. So maybe you've been in small engines, the introductory for 1 year, and you're in small engines, the advanced class. Now you can tell them that you've been working on small engines for 2 years. You can use Mr. Wolf as your reference, and now you got a reference, and you got 2 years of doing the exact same thing that shows that you're building experience. So if you were in small engines for 2 years, you can use that as your experience, and you would want to use Mr. Wolf as a reference because then he knows you really, really well. So that would be an excellent thing to put on a resume right now, is something like small engines. If you're on track and you ran track, by the way, I got my track shirt on right here. So if you ran track every year, so if you're a senior and you ran track for 4 years, that shows, hey, you got stick-to-itiveness, you're dedicated, you're willing to follow directions or a coach, right? So you write down track for 4 years. So your education, you're not just saying I went to Bayer High School. What you're trying to think is unique things you did while you're at Bayer. I'm thinking of another student who's done leadership. So he's shown up early to school, 0 period, his whole entire freshman year. Now, how many freshmen show up to 0 period for an extra class? Not very many, right? So that would be something extra you can put down for education. I'm in leadership. I've done it for 1 school year, and these are the things I've learned in leadership. So that'd be really good to set him apart from other people. So you want to kind of think of that. Training, again, if you have been working in the nursery at the church, maybe they got some training. You've done some different experiences where learning how to do that. They talked about sexual harassment, or they talked about mandated reporting, things like that may be pertinent to that job. You can put that as your training. Any kind of special skills. Again, you got to be creative here. You're young, you're a teenager. So going back to the corn, you and your mom plant corn every year. You grow corn. I don't think you raise corn, but you grow corn and you take care of the corn and you sell the corn, right? So that would be a skill that's very unique that not very many teenagers do. So you want to be kind of creative. Think of things that you've done for your skills. And then lastly, you need to have at least 3 references that are not blood related or not family, right? So no family. So in your situation, you probably want to have teachers, coaches, people from church, or if you like to do Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or any kind of extracurricular activity that's outside of school. If you do, I'm thinking of horses, we have the country, you have the horses out there, so maybe you ride horses and take care of a horse. So maybe the person who runs the place that sees you out there taking care of the horse, that would be a great reference. If you've worked for anybody, if you've done babysitting, you use those people. The parents or the babies are the people that you watched. Use those for your reference. So just think of anybody who could be a great reference. You need to have 3 references. In the least, if you can't think of anybody outside of school or outside of your family, you got to think at least 3 teachers, right? 3 teachers that like you and probably will say something positive about you, right? So don't pick the teacher you get into trouble with the most. Pick the teacher that you get along with the best, right? That's the teacher. If you're a senior, you've probably had 25 teachers by now. So try to find the 3 of those 25 that you've gotten along with the best, right? And then use those 3 as your references, especially like coaches, that kind of thing. Coaches are a great reference. So go ahead and pause, and now you're going to go ahead and fill out this information, that chart we just talked about. So go ahead and fill it out, your name that you want to use, your phone number, address. You definitely have to have a phone number. You definitely have an address. Email is optional, and your accounts are kind of optional, but definitely these first 2 are mandatory. You want to think of experiences. You want to think of at least 3 different experiences that you've had in your life that would help you in a job situation. So we talked about those like babysitting, doing chores, working for an aunt, uncle, grandparents, anytime you've ever gotten paid for anything or volunteer work. Those would be your experiences. Education, try to think of 3 different types of educational training or skills that would help you out for a job. This might be really difficult for a couple of you. You might have to be kind of creative and think of things you've done. If you volunteered at school, set up for a concert or a dance, that'd be a really great reference, or a training. You got to come up with 3 references. And with the references right now, it would just be a name. But on the real resume, you would want to have their name and their phone number. So if you use a reference, you want to talk to the reference and you want to ask them, hey, can I use you for a reference? Would you be somebody I would want to use for a reference? And if they say yes, then you would get their phone number and you'd write that down as well. So their name and phone number, if you can. Obviously, because we're all at stay at home, it might be hard to get phone numbers. And that brings me to the next point on the references, what I just said. So with a reference, it could bite you and make things negative. So you want to make sure with your reference that they will say positive things about you. So before you put a person's name down, you want to make sure you talk to that person and you say, hey, I would like to use you for a reference. Would that be okay with you? They say yes. Okay. Now you ask them, would you be a good reference for me? Would this be a situation I would want to use you as a reference? And hopefully they'll say, yeah, I'd love to be your reference. If you see them say something like, well, there's probably a lot of people out there who would do it better, be a better reference than I would be for you, then you don't want to use them because they don't have a good thought about you, right? They might say something negative. So you want to use people as a reference that will say positive things. So pause this video, fill out this chart, and then start the video back up. All right, so you came back, and so the next part here is on how to write a resume. So this is a real fun video I found. This young gal, she's entertaining. It's probably not the smoothest video I've ever seen, but actually it was very entertaining, and she hit all the major points. So go ahead and watch the video. While you're watching, think of these 3 answers.
According to the video, what goes at the top of the page? What advice did she give for high schoolers that have had a job yet? Oh, I forgot to. What advice did she give to high schoolers that have not had a job yet? Have not had a job yet. So if you hadn't had a job, what was the advice that she gave you? And the last one is, what did this video say a qualification summary is? What is a qualification summary? So answer those 3 questions as you're going through the 8-minute video. Pause this, watch the video, and when you come to these answers, pause that video and then answer these questions. Pause the video, watch the video, answer the questions. All right, excellent. All right, so that brings us to the last point. This is something you probably would do on Thursday. This is getting to the end of it now. So what you'd like to do is I'm going to walk you through how to open up Word, how to search for resumes on a search bar, find a resume you like, and then fill out that resume. All right, so the first thing to do is get a template. So if you go to your programs window and then you open up Word. So if you go to programs or start button, go down to programs, go down to Word and open that up. And it should be something like this. And you can hit on here, you can hit new. It should say new right here. This one mine is happened to say home. So you're going to hit home or new. And in this little search box, you're going to write in resume. Resume. Looks like resume, but it's French, so it's resume. And then enter. Enter. And it's not working. So I have to hit new. For some reason it was not cooperating. Resume. So you got to hit new. Not sure why that wasn't working there, but hit new and resume. And on Word, on your computer, there should be a ton of examples. Now, sometimes the teacher's version is better than the student version, which I'm hoping it's not. We have the exact same thing. But what I did do is in our in this I put references. If you go back to the top, and if you slide over to the side a little bit, there's resources, and then there's actually a video on here on Google Docs. So you can also use, it's a free program. It's just like Word, but it's on Google Docs. It's on your Gmail account. So you can watch this video on Google Docs and how to do the exact same thing I'm going to show you right now, but using Google, which is a free Word printing device, or you can use the Word that I'm using. So hopefully you can find what I'm looking at. And so what you want to do is on Word, they give you a bunch of these templates. Each of these are called a template. And these are all resumes. Some of them might be a resume letter. But you kind of look through and you kind of find the one that you like, and then you can adjust it to how you want it to look. So my advice, since most of you probably don't have a lot of work experience yet or a lot of education, you kind of want to find one that's kind of simple and doesn't have a ton of information on it. So for example, like this one, they have paragraphs written here, paragraph, a big list of all the things they have accomplished, list of things over here they have accomplished. This one here has tons of paragraphs on it, tons of information. So this would be kind of hard for a high schooler to fill in, right? Something that has all this information on it. So you kind of want to find one that it's more spaced out. Like this probably would be a good resume to pick, where things are spaced out. It doesn't look like there's lots of things you have to think of, be too creative. Another thing that would really set you out nowadays, people are such visual learners. If you got one that had a picture on it, if you're able to add your own picture, if you know how to copy and paste and download a picture, you don't have to do that, but that's something nowadays. If you put in your application and a resume in the Taco Bell, and they know who you are and what you look like, it's going to set it that way off. They're going to call you for an interview. You do well on an interview, you're going to have a really good chance of getting a job. So what I would do, I would pick one of these that's kind of simpler, not a ton of information on it, that's kind of well laid out. So I would pick something like this one here. I really like this one here. It looks really simple. Doesn't have a ton of information on it. Even like this one here doesn't have a ton of information on it. So then you find the one you like, you double click it, and you download it. And then basically the information you wrote in your OneNote, you're just going to write that information in here and try to make it sound clear and concise. So you're going to write in your name, right? And then you're going to put in you're going to do this for real, because you're going to use this for real. right? And if you're a freshman, you keep this, and as you get more jobs, more experience, you can add to it, keep it in your computer on file in the cloud, and then through the years you can just keep adding to it. That's what they call resume building, because you're always building on. So once you build a resume on the computer, you keep that document on your computer, and it's a living document. You get a new job, you can add that job in there. You get a new volunteer work, you add that volunteer work in there. So you want to put in your address, your phone number. The objective, this one is a little tougher to do, but this is really a great thing to do. So if you, again, Jiffy Lube, you want to go work at Jiffy Lube, I would like to help Jiffy Lube provide. I would like to help Jiffy Lube give their customers excellent service. Here's a great thing about Word. You get this little red squiggly. That means you misspelled it. So I misspelled customers. So hopefully it's close enough. If it's close enough, if you right click on it, Word will help you try to spell it correctly. So then they give you what they think you try to say. So I try to say customers excellent. So there I missed my L. I put I and one L. So I should have had E and double L. Excellent service. I would like to help Jiffy Lube give their customers excellent service. Boom. That's my objective. And now, if tomorrow I print this out for Jiffy Lube, and then the next day I go to Kohl's or Target, I can just take that out and put in Target because I'm on a computer. Boom, now I print this one out. And pretty much the rest of the information could stay pretty much the same, and I can just change the job. What some people do, because they don't want to always change that name, or like me, I kind of forget sometimes to change the name, so I turn this Target one in, I turn it into Walmart, and Walmart's like, oh, you got the wrong name on there. So you can change it to something more generic. So I would like to help your company, and then you can make it more generic. I would like to help your company give your customers excellent service. So that you can make it generic, so that way you don't have to go in there and change it. It's kind of nice if you personalize it, then the company thinks, oh, they're thinking about us in particular. What I would always forget to change the name, and so I always left it generic, so I wouldn't have to think about it. But they like it better if you would put their company name in here. That makes them feel better about it. And then you want to put in your skills and abilities. This is where we talked about that. In this one, they have it as a paragraph. You could do a paragraph, but you don't have to. You can highlight it, and then you can go over and right-click over here where it has the bullets, and then change that into bullets. So you can go over there, and then it's not cooperating. Sometimes Word has a mind of its own. So Control Z, undo. So I'm gonna because it wants me to start my own. So then I can do 1, 2, 3. I can say my 3 different skills and abilities that you wrote down, and then you can highlight that and then turn that into your own bullets. You can do a bullet form, like here's bullet form, or you can do it in paragraph form. It doesn't really matter. Each one's individualized. Experience, this is your start date to end date, and usually you keep this really general. So you can just put down October 2019 to June 2020, right? And then just keep it. You don't have to have the exact date. Just kind of when. Even like me now, I wouldn't even put the months on there now. I would just put, because I'm so old, I just put the years. So even more generic. 2019, 2020. I don't even put the months anymore. But at your age, you're kind of younger, you probably want to put the months in there, but you don't have to. The job you worked at, and then again, this says job, but it doesn't have to be a job. It doesn't mean you got paid. It could have been volunteer work, church, or at the school you helped out a teacher set up for an event, and it took 2 weeks. They had to plan ahead, get your job descriptions, set up for the event, and do the event, and then clean up the event. So there's a whole list of things you did for that one event to help out that teacher. That would be good enough. So you can put down school event. Ballinger High School. And then you'd write down what you did during that event. I helped Mrs. Cruz set up for the math club, right? Boom, you can write that out. Education, again, pretty much everybody you're going to put this in for. Like me, I would put down, I have a master's degree, a BA, and like I attended junior college, but even now, because I have a master's degree, I don't even have to write down junior college anymore, right? Because my education is higher than a junior college, so I don't even though I did go to MJC, I don't even have to write that down anymore because I have something higher. So at your grade level and a junior or a senior, it's going to be more difficult. So you don't really want to put everybody that puts in a job over here, the Burger King that's right down the street from Ballinger High School, like 80% of their applicants are getting are from Ballinger High School. So writing down Ballinger High School is not going to really help them out. So you want to write down Ballinger High School, and then write down things that you've done in particular at Ballinger High School that helps you out. So you're on the football team. You helped out with the leadership club. You help Mr. White every day clean up the classroom. So things that will help set you apart from everybody else who's gone to Ballinger High School, right? I have a 3.5 GPA. Mostly A's and B's in all my class, right? Things that will, I've only missed one day of school this in 2019, 2020, right? Things that look really, really good. All right, so the last thing on here is communication. So basically they're trying to say, this one you can keep communication on there, which again is kind of difficult for a freshman, but you can just change this title. You can just get rid of it. Like, I don't want to do anything. I'm not gonna write anything. Or you can put something different in there. Special skills. So again, this is where maybe you and your mom do the corn, right? So you can write down special skills and write down every year my mom and I, we plant a garden, grow the garden, and then sell off or give away the produce that we make, right? That's special skills. You can change this. Leadership. If you don't have anything in leadership, like I've never done anything, I don't even know what that word means. You can just change it to something else. Or if you're like, man, I got nothing left, you can just get rid of it, right? Boom, just get rid of it. You don't have to have it, right? So when you turn this in, the employer is not going to know that you deleted that section. And then remember, if you delete something, you hit Control Z, you want to bring it back. You can, then you can, if you wanted to, you can change this up to something different. You could change it to what was something else that junior in high school had done? You could put volunteer work. So maybe you want to put volunteer experience. So you're a Boy Scout and you've been volunteering with the Cub Scouts. So I volunteer with the Cub Scouts. My general duties are X, Y, and Z. Every Sunday for the last 2 years, I've worked with the toddlers with Mrs. O'Brien. And then you can put down Mrs. O'Brien as a reference. Oh, this one doesn't have references. So you can put Mrs. O'Brien for reference. And actually, what we should do on this one, if you downloaded this one, which you don't have to do this one again, you want to add, you got to have references. And so this one should have references, so you want to add your references. So down this last one, you want to do a reference, and you do who you want, right? Mr. White, Mrs. Cruz, and Mr. Moore. All right, so you want to have their names and their phone numbers. For this assignment, you don't have to have their phone numbers, so we're not with them. But if you really are serious, if you're a junior, senior, and you really want to try to start doing a resume and you want to start applying for jobs this summer, talk to these people, whoever it is you want to use, and make sure you get their phone numbers and ask them to be a good reference. So this is your assignment for the week. Basically, that's what we got going on. So go through, answer the questions, take the notes, and by Friday, create and make a resume to the best of your ability. Again, I know some of you might be freshmen without any experience, so you're going to have to be really creative. And then once you're done filling out your resume, copy it and paste it into OneNote, or you can download it in OneNote. You can attach it in OneNote. Somehow get it in OneNote. I can open it, see it. Friday I'll come on, or Thursday, whenever you get done, we can look at it together, and I go through and we can check it together and see how it looks. And lastly, it's a living document, so save it into your cloud, right? Save it into your own personal cloud, and you can basically use this resume for the rest of your life, right? you're going to build on it, and then as you get new jobs, new experiences, you can take that experience off, put a new experience on. You actually do get a job. I know somebody in our class has a job at Wendy's, so he can actually use that reference, his manager from Wendy's, and take off. Mr. White can come off and put that manager on there now because he actually had a job with a manager, and put that person on there now, right? You can go to her and say, hey, can I use you as a reference on my resume? And usually they're pretty good about it. They usually say yes. Sometimes they kind of feel like, oh, you're going to leave me? Don't leave me. But they usually say yes. Well, I hope that wasn't a lot. I feel like I've talked forever. So go ahead and stop the video. Go back and watch the 2 videos. Answer the questions. Create a resume. Turn that in hopefully by Friday. If you turn that in earlier, it'd be better. And enjoy your day. Don't stress out. Do maybe a half hour a day, 40 minutes a day until you get it done. And enjoy your time with your family. Thank you very much. And bye-bye.